And while we are waiting for my co-host to join us here, I just want to welcome everybody and just get started here. I'm going to dive right in. We got a lot of stuff I was going to talk about tonight, and so we're just going to go for it right away.
I didn't have any questions prepared for today. I just wanted to have like a general conversation with you. If that's all good with you. I mean, just kind of
Yep.
like back and forth. You had made like a comment last time where you didn't really have a choice. When it came to moving forward, it's like either you sink or swim, either you do or die type thing. At least that's how I gathered it. So I was just kind of curious about that because I mean, there's other people who feel that they have the choice to go the other way, where they could basically just use the system or just, what, I got this big X on me, I might as well just go back, or something along those lines. So I was just kind of curious. I mean, for you personally, I mean, why did you feel like you just had to move forward?
Well, the I was actually thinking about. I had this kind of profound moment. I don't know when it was today. I think it was when I was in the dentist today. But I was thinking about this. Uh, when I was sitting in the chair, you remember when you asked me, you're like, what changed? Like what was the motivating thing or whatever? It was actually when I got my COVID shot. And I actually remember this now that I think about it in retrospect a little bit. Like, I was still a piece of shit a couple years. I'm still kind of a piece of shit now. I'm not gonna lie to you, but I'm trying to be better, right? We're always trying to get better, right? But I was really not on this trajectory a couple years ago. Prior to COVID happening, I was just also really just, working and trying to do the normal thing. I wasn't really talking about any of what had happened to me. I just kind of kept my head down about all that stuff. But when I got my COVID shot, we were helping a lot of nursing homes and stuff, and we were doing a lot of stuff when everybody else was back home. Nobody else was wanting to work at that time, and everybody else was kind of like, you
Right.
know,
That was
playing
like
it
ground
cool.
zero.
Yeah, it's kind of a scary time. Like I forgot, like it, to me, I forgot how scary COVID was. I mean, and it still is now, but I mean, at back when like a couple years ago when it really, really like we didn't know what was going to happen the next day. That was so scary. We all lived through like 200, 300 million of us all lived through this trauma in the United States simultaneously, all a little different, but like when I got my COVID shot, that was the time when I was down. I was like, I'm done with just, being mediocre. I did not want to be basic anymore at that point, right? I wanted to be something. I just saw a friend of mine post this thing is like, basically you should be doing stuff that you want people to talk about you at your funeral, right? What is my legacy or whatever. I started thinking about that. I hopefully not going to die anytime soon or anything, but like, is my life something that my daughter would be proud of saying, oh, this is my father? And I honestly, even a couple of years ago, I wasn't there, you know? And I, when, like I said, I got that shot, I was like, I have to make a change. I have to do something different. And then I started looking at examining everything. I mean, I used to be a smoker. I mean, a pack of cigarettes every day. I used to drink a lot. I mean, I quit all that stuff. I, just recently started working out more often, but I never did. It's been a long time since I worked out, and I just really did not take care of myself at all. I was just not living a good life at all. Nothing about it was good. And so that it's weird that COVID was the one thing that somehow it was so tragic, but my life through COVID was actually really good. And I'm knocking on wood and stuff. I was really lucky that nothing bad happened per se. I got out of it on somewhat unscathed, but it it you know I just I just like I can't help but think about that change, you know, and like I said, I obviously always wanted to, you know, get my convictions or whatever taken off my record, and I wanted to not have to live with that stigma, but I never really made any difference about I never did anything about it. You know, I wanted it, but I never did anything about it. And so I don't know, it's just like that I thought that was kind of profound when I was thinking about that today. I don't even know if that was a question or not anymore, but
Not quite, but I mean, thank you for that. Like, I mean, basically, because like if you put yourself like if okay, if I were to be in that situation, basically for me myself, I know that I would want to stay to the straight and narrow per se, you know, despite circumstances. But I know that not everybody is either A, strong enough to do that, or B, they just don't want to do that, you know? And so, like, when we had talked, you know, a while back, you know, you had talked about how, you know, you basically went cross country and you were able to, you know, make a delivery with your vehicle and the trials that kind of came along with that, you know. But you had made that conscientious decision to basically move forward, you know, despite, you know, the circumstances, you know. And so I guess that's kind of like what I was trying to get at is like, you know, what made you like make that decision? Like, you know what, I'm moving forward. I'm not gonna like settle, you know.
having my daughter was definitely a major factor, you know, in, you know, because she wasn't even, I never even knew I was going to have a kid when I first got in trouble, you know. But when my wife and I, and actually it's funny because I hope I don't get off too off track. Keep me have to hold me on this, but somebody was talking about when me and my wife got together. She's like, "Oh, it must have been, you know, great, and you must have just really fell in love and stuff." We did not have a good beginning. Actually, you and I even talked about this too. Is like things are not really great at that time. I mean, it was kind of a rough situation for both of us. She was coming out of an abusive relationship, and she had 3 kids, you know, and I was young. I think I was 24-ish, maybe years old or something like that when I met her. Yeah, something like that. I was 20, I was on probation, you know, and I just, like I said, I was doing all kinds of drugs, and I'm not talking about smoking weed drugs either. And I was not making good life decisions, and that's unfortunately how her and I met. I knew her husband, and so when I first started getting with her and I first took the responsibility of raising 3 kids that weren't mine, I definitely had to step it up, right? I had to stop a lot of what I was doing and kind of be better, but I still did a lot of bad shit, you know, and apologize for the lack of the G rating there, but I was a bad dude for a long time even then. You know, I really drank a lot. You know, I was either smoking weed or drinking. It was either one of the two of those things was happening. And I all I always, and even up until a couple of years ago, this is why I was not ever impressed. I used to pat myself on the back. I'm like, you're raising 3 kids that aren't yours. Look at all the good you're doing. But I was still a piece of crap. So was I really necessarily doing the right thing or not? You know, it's hard to say there because, you know, we really struggled. We really, really, really struggled. And we dealt with a lot of stuff. And then, you know, now it's kind of like I'm looking at it in hindsight and it's like, well, the kids are doing good and, you know, they're responsible and going to college and all that good fun stuff. But like I said, the last couple of years, people reached out to me because they're like when I first decided I was going to tell them about my criminal record and like publicly, were like they didn't know that about me. So they reached out to me and they're like, "Wow, I can't believe that you were able to do what you were able to do despite this problem. And right at the beginning of COVID, there's actually a news story. My wife and I were interviewed on the news, like right away at the beginning of COVID, because we were unemployed. And my grandma died. Like COVID was, I guess, like I said, it was good and bad, but I kind of I suppressed that part of the whole story about COVID. My grandma died during COVID, and like nobody could go see her except for my dad and my uncle because of the restrictions in the hospital or whatever. But I snuck into the hospital. I told them I was my uncle, and they didn't like ID me or anything. So I was actually able to go see my uncle or see my grandma that one last time or whatever, telling them I was my uncle. So when my grandma died, you know, she died penniless. She used to work for a company in Indiana that made, it was Tenneco. It was like they made mufflers and stuff for cars. In like the early 1990s or something, they went bankrupt, right? My grandma lost everything because she had a pension and stuff. They took away all that. And she died during COVID, and she thought I was a failure. And because at the time, like, I just was a failure. I didn't have my stuff together. This is a video from right at that same time.
And the maximum amount of money I could get from Indiana on a plane was $390. And I mean, that doesn't even pay my rent.
Can you see it?
I can see
so, you know, we had car payments.
Yeah, so anyways, basically I'm whining on the news here on this video about how I don't get enough money in unemployment to pay my bills.
But, you know, there'll be other people that won't have
But we were on the news, like literally right around the beginning of that time. And I just told myself, I was like, I'm not going to suffer the same fate that my grandma did and die. You know, she died basically with nothing, working for a company that, you know, did not do her any favors by any means or anything like that. So I don't know. It was like a comprehensive life change. Like I said, you stop poisoning yourself. You start trying to concentrate on doing, you know, got back into college. I wasted 10 years not pursuing my bachelor's degree because I owed the college $600 and I was on academic probation. And so had I known, all I had to do is transfer to another college and pay that $600, I could have had my bachelor's 10 years ago. And I know that's definitely held me back, you know, in a lot of jobs. And this is another thing. It's just so crazy. I don't know. This was another shift of paradigm shifting. Is I always used to tell people, I was like, you don't need a 4-year degree. I'm like, you can get by without one. You got to get a 4-year degree. There's a paper ceiling this world imposes upon you, and the things that you learn through pursuing that degree are so valuable. I'm in a history of rock and roll class right now, and you would laugh at how much I've actually learned from this class, because I thought it was going to be the joke class. I'm like, the history of rock and roll, I could ace this class no problem. Jimi Hendrix, the electric guitar, and I understand all this stuff. I can get through it all. But yeah, anyways, you just start making all these. My old boss used to say, "How do you eat an elephant?" And always it was like one bite at a time. But these incremental changes, you know, started adding up. Like the ball starts rolling downhill, you know, and you can't stop. Just like working out. I started working out now. I'm addicted.
That's good. So I want to say one thing before we continue. One, you're not a piece of trash. You know, I don't think anybody honestly is a piece of trash. You know, I mean, there are people who are making bad choices and poor choices, you know, but I do believe we all hold value of some sort. And I would say your value is much more than a lot of other people. That's just my personal opinion. When it comes to like even like with what when Grant Cardone, like the greatest salesman on earth for now. I mean, basically, he had his problems, and then like basically when he started cleaning up his life and just like making the changes that were holding him back, basically that's when he was able to make advancement. And so I think that a lot of us have something that is either holding us back, or what do you call it, just maybe fear, or just lack of knowledge. And so for me personally, like when I talk with you, I find it interesting, just like how you see things and how you're able to grasp, I guess not necessarily like the bigger picture, but you're able to focus in on what needs to be done, and you do it. And I think that's pretty cool, man.
Well, thank you very much. It's taken a long time to get to this particular juncture. I mean, like I said, I'm listening to David Goggins' new book. I don't know if you're a fan of David Goggins or not, but I am listening to his book. It's called Never Finished. It's basically, I'm listening to him talk about how he ran a 220-mile race. And I can't even get my mind around the idea of running 20 miles, let alone this guy is running these 200-mile races, and he's just